is where I was dying, and I couldn't take the waiting anymore. I wanted to get it over with. And I raised my eyes to accept my death that I knew was coming, and there's nothing I can do to change it. I've gone as far as I can go, and I have failed. This guy has beat me, and he's won. And that's when the miracle of all miracles happens for me in my life. I did not see Jesus appear. He was there when I raised my eyes to accept my death. And I was overwhelmed and submerged in complete and total peace. In the presence of the Lord, it was complete and total peace. Prince of Peace, one of his titles. The peace was so thick, it was surrounding me like water in the ocean. My lungs didn't hurt, my body didn't hurt, my left arm didn't hurt, my chest, my ribs, none of my injuries hurt at all, and I was breathing freely normally. And it was like somebody dipped me in a jacuzzi of warm bath water. And it was a complete and total peace, and I was in awe. And I get asked, I describe it as Jesus is magnificent. That's the words I use to describe it. He's magnificent. And in his presence, he's not large in stature, and I'll describe him in a short while. But he's magnificent. He's average height, average build. He was wearing a white robe. He had a white sash around his waist. On the floor, there was 2 rings of white light with these inscriptions inside those rings that I'd never seen before. I call it writing from heaven. Directly behind him was a small wooden stool. Directly behind that wooden stool was a leather-bound Holy Bible. It was tan leather with gold calligraphy. It said Holy Bible. And the totality of that, before I get to that, he had shoulder-length hair, very similar to your length, curled up at the ends, going outwards. He had a dark beard. My beard is all gray. His was all dark brown. And he had his back to me, but he looked back like this, so I could see his cheekbones and part of his forehead, and he had a very nice tan. I didn't see his eyes, so I can't describe him. I didn't see him. And I knew the minute that I saw him that it was Jesus. Buddha wasn't there. Allah wasn't there. Confucius wasn't there. Shiva, Krishna, you name the God, they weren't there. It was Jesus and Jesus alone on my dying breath. And at that point, I got the courage to speak. And I said, Lord, I trust you completely. What do you want me to do with this guy? And he sat down on this stool and he pulled out there was a bottle of ink on his desk. It was a black bottle with black ink and a white feather, almost exactly this size. He extracts the feather out and he starts writing. He gets done, he puts the feather back in the ink bottle, and this note flies off his desk and lands on my tactical vest. I pick it up and read it, and in beautiful calligraphy, it says, I want you to bless him. And that's such a far departure from where I'm at, because I'm worldly and I'm a sinner. And he demonstrates godly characteristics, even to a pedophile that I'm trying to actively kill, who's actively trying to kill me. He didn't tell me reload and finish the job. What he said was he demonstrated Christ-like qualities and said, I want you to bless the man that's trying to kill you. So the only thought that went through my mind at that point was, yes, sir. And I don't know if he can see Jesus or not. I know that I'm in such a bad state, it took Christ to come save me. And the more I think about it now, the more I'm convinced that that was my last and dying breath, and I didn't know it. And I looked right at the bad guy and I said, God bless you, brother. And he's just staring. He's just staring at me. He's holding his rifle. She's not pointing it at me. He's just holding it off to the side. He doesn't say a single word. And I said, God bless you, brother. I'm going to pray for you. And he set his rifle down because I was obedient to what Christ told me. And my interaction with Christ happens. And so that whole interaction is I'm real and my word is real. No, I knew when I saw him, it was Jesus and Jesus alone. I also knew I'm either going home with Jesus or I'm going home to Gracie and the kids, and either one is a win. And I was at complete and total peace. I was absolutely good. I said, I'm with Jesus. I don't have any problems. I am so good. I'm with the Lord right now, and it's fine. And the next vision that he shares with me, and it did, and again, it took me. I couldn't talk for 40 something days with tubes in my nose, in my mouth, in my throat. They put a valve in my tracheotomy that would allow me to speak, and I could only have it for 4 to 6 hours a day. That's all they would let me use it. And I used that time to tell my wife exactly what I went through inside the apartment. And so I was asking my wife, I said, I don't understand. I was right by the door the whole time. How am I reading all these notes that are on the desk? He had specific notes for me and for the family. But I'm down there on the floor. How is it that I could read the notes? Well, when you go through these critical incidents, your body is processing large amounts of information in big blocks. There'll be fine details that get left out, but over time, they'll come back to you. So it came back to me in the hospital. At the time, I didn't realize it. In the hospital, I later realized, hey, I was actually out of my body with my hurt arm resting on Jesus' left shoulder, reading the notes that he'd written for me on the desk. And when I got done reading those notes, we go into the second part of the vision. The floor clears away, and we look straight down, and he shows me the gates of hell. And I'll describe those. He was merciful. He covered it with a black cloud. He covered the entrance. But I saw the rectangle stones that line it. It's like the screen we're looking at. It's a rectangle shape, and there are these gray and black stones that run all the way around the edge of it. And he put a black cloud right there so that I could not see inside. But what he allowed me to hear for a brief period of time was torment, what people were suffering, and agony. And that's what changed my heart. And that allowed me, because without this, there's no way. And this is very important. This changed the trajectory of my life. Because up until that point, I would not have been able to forgive this guy. I would have thrown him in the pit, spit, given him 2 middle fingers, and mocked him and made fun of him and said, you deserve it. And I can't wait to come by every year and laugh at you and make fun of you and say, that's what you deserve. Until I heard what true suffering in hell sounds like. And I don't want a single soul. I don't care what you've done in this life. What crime, what sin, doesn't matter to me. You're not outside of God's grace, mercy, and forgiveness unless you flat out reject him. If you just say, I don't want you, and you go to your dying breath saying, I don't want you, well, then you got to reap the consequences of eternal separation. But there is room for the kingdom for anybody who will repent. But not lip service, true repentance. And so I changed my heart for this guy. I actually felt bad for him. I felt sorry for him. And I know I'm going home to the Lord or going home to Gracie, and I think I just got a glimpse of where this guy's probably going, and I felt bad for him. And that changed the whole outlook now. I mean, now, 13 years later, it's lost or saved. It's not us versus them, black, white, green, purple. You fit the division. You can fit any kind of name you want, any category. We have so many categories. They have us fighting and squabbling with each other so that we can't carry out God's will. That's the enemy's one of his oldest tricks, and he does it time and time again. If I don't like you for X, Y, and Z, and we're fighting at each other, I can't share the gospel with you. I can't show Jesus' attributes to you. I can't show you just a small glimpse of Christ's love. but we're too busy bickering and fighting. We're at each other's throat. So if you never hear the gospel, how are you going to learn? How are you going to come to salvation if you never heard it? Because we're too busy fighting each other. And that's how the enemy has this whole world turned upside down and fighting each other. And it's anything goes but Jesus. I know I'm kind of going off on a different direction, but that's the truth. It's anything but Jesus. So he sets his rifle down. I see that dragon. I heard the screams. That goes away, and I'm back by the door where I thought I was initially. So now I'm laying down by the door where I thought I was the whole time and didn't realize till later that I had this outer body experience. Torment. Out of that black cloud came this giant red dragon. And again, I'm standing behind Christ. He's seated. There's the desk in front of him. I've got my hurt arm resting on his shoulder. I read all the notes and instructions. The floor is cleared away, and I see the gates of hell with a cloud over the top. And out of this cloud came this giant red dragon. Now, if you go to Revelation chapter 12, verse 20, I believe, it describes Satan as Satan, that great red dragon of old. Depending on your version, it might say serpent or it might say dragon. But same. And I'm looking at this giant dragon, and I'm hundreds of feet away. And he was massive from being that, even as far away as I was, it was terrifying to look at. He had this huge tail. He was whipping it. He was clawing at the cloud. He was whipping his head back and forth. He was roaring. He was with his wings. Without saying it, Christ made it perfectly clear who that was. He said, this is your enemy. This is what the human race is up against. This is this is the enemy of humanity. And I'm showing him to you in his true form. So when you see him again, you'll recognize it. Because this is what we're all dealing with in every country on planet Earth. This is the enemy of humanity, of all mankind. And I got to see that and recognize that was part of the vision. And then that goes away, and I'm back by the door where I thought I was initially. So now I'm laying down by the door where I thought I was the whole time and didn't realize till later that I had this outer body experience. And I'm looking at the wall, and it turns into like a movie screen, very much like what I'm looking at you with the shape of the screen. And it's got the skyline of the city of San Diego. The perspective is from the Coronado Island ferry landing. So if you look at Coronado Island and go to the ferry landing and look at images and see the skyline of San Diego in the background, that's what I was looking at. Now, Coronado is very special to me. That's where I met my wife when I was going through diver training in the Navy. And that's where I asked her to be my girlfriend. That's where I proposed to her. And many, many years later, that's where my son proposed to his girlfriend. Same spot. He put me in a place I recognized and gave me a vision. I knew exactly where I was as soon as I said, I'm in Coronado. I'm looking at the skyline of the city of San Diego. Now, the interesting fact about that, there was a clock on the left and a calendar on the right, a circular clock, big hand, little hand. A calendar off to the right. Keep in mind, this is a very specific point. The calendar was not a monthly calendar, it was a daily calendar. And I thought, well, that's odd. I see San Diego. Here's a clock on this side, a calendar on this side. And then I just started watching and observing. And then the clock turned on like a fan. All the numbers, everything was a blur. It was like looking at a fan going full speed. It was just a blur. You couldn't tell any numbers whatsoever. Big hand, little hand, second hand, it was all blurry, just spinning. And then off the calendar, it was like if you take your hand through a thick Bible and you run your thumb through all the pages, how the pages turn real fast, the date on the calendar started spinning. No man knows the date nor the hour, and I don't either. Some dark clouds came in. There was a little lightning. There was some lightning with a light rain and a drizzle, not a heavy rain. It was a light rain. The bay water started washing up into the streets. Like you have this scene where there's beach behind you. That bay water was washing up into the streets. And then every building, every window, every blade of grass, every car, everything, living and non-living, and whether it was a person, place, or thing, it was all burning and on fire. Everything that I could see was burning and on fire. That's end times biblical prophecy. And I watched the skyline of the city of San Diego burn. What the Bible says will come to pass, period. And I stake my eternity on it. Well, as powerful and terrifying as it was not about fear. The message was this, loud and clear. Through the silence, it was ringing in my ears. There's still time. Before this day gets here, there's still time for us to humble ourselves before the Lord, to get right with Jesus, and men to lead their families to the Lord. Because on that great and terrible day, believers are not, that's not reserved for believers. That wrath is reserved for the non-believer. And there's still time before this is coming. And before it gets here, we have a small amount of time to get right with Jesus and to lead our families to the Lord, and then share the gospel with as many people as we can before that day gets here. And that was the true message, actually a message of hope. They're saying this is coming, but there's still a way out. There's still hope for us if you'll but humble yourself and repent. And so that goes away. And that was the last vision that I saw. And I'm by the door and I didn't see Jesus at this point. It's just the bad guy and I in the apartment. And he looks at me and he says, "Would you like to crawl out to your friends now?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm done." He tries to open the door for me. Now, at this point, we're at the 11-minute mark. Now, think about my injuries. I should have been dead minutes ago, but yet I'm alive and communicating with a bad guy in the apartment at 11 minutes. He tries to open the door for me. The rescue team is now assembled at the bottom of the stairs with shields and long guns. They see something and they open fire on the house. I say house, but I mean apartment. So they shoot up the apartment. He goes diving back. And I think to myself, I'm not going to see that dude again. I got to give him credit. He got up one more time. He tried to open the door for me. Rescue team outside opens fire a second time. They go flying. He goes flying back and he looks at me like, I'm trying to open the door so you can get out. And then another crazy thing happens. He takes off running. He goes full Superman and he dives and he lands right next to me. So our shoulders are touching side by side. We're looking at each other. If he was touching my shoulder, we're arm to arm. We're looking at each other. I'm bleeding. He's all shot and bleeding. And he says, "I'm done, man. I'm done." And I said, "Hey, it's going to be all right. Don't worry about it." And he goes, "Hey, I got an idea." And I said, "Yeah, what's that?" And he said, "Let's go together." And oh man, and this is the second time I thought I was going to die. I thought that he brought a small handgun with him, that he was going to execute me and then kill himself, or execute me and shoot it out and be killed, or execute me and be taken into custody. And this is, and I'm like, oh man, I didn't see the handgun. This is where I'm going to die. And I looked and I saw Jesus one last time, and he was only like 3 to 4 feet away from me, just straight in front of me. And I looked, I saw Jesus, and I looked back at him. I know exactly where I'm going. And I just got a glimpse of where he's probably going. So I didn't know what else to say. So I said, "You know what? I'm ready, man. Let's go." And he stopped. And he goes, "I can't do it, man. I just can't do it." And he got up and he ran and jumped to the original spot he was hiding when I kicked open the door originally. And he shouted out to me one last time, I'm done, man. I'm done. I took a few deep breaths. I didn't see Jesus anymore. It's just me and him in the apartment. And I'm like, well, he set his rifle down. He's not shooting at me. It's time for me to go. So I start looking for a way to get out. And I can't explain how the front door got open. By the grace of God, it got open. Rescue team outside. Everybody outside already thinks I'm dead. They thought when he shut the door that he killed me. So they see movement outside, and they challenge me. They said, identify yourself or you'll be fired upon. Well, I think that I'm projecting my voice and that I'm yelling, but I don't realize that I have a collapsed lung and my diaphragm's all hurt. So what I'm speaking is probably not louder than a whisper. So they open fire on me. So all these bullets are going over my head. And I thought, man, that didn't work. So I tried getting on the radio with this mad chaos on the radio. It didn't go out. I said, hey, it's Ollie. I've been shot a couple of times. Don't shoot. I'm coming out. And they challenged me a second time. And they opened fire on me a second time. And all these bullets were going all over my head. I'm laying down here on my back, and I didn't know what to do. I tried waving. I tried yelling. I tried getting on the radio. And I didn't know what to do. And I was like, man, the good Lord did not just come down here, save me from being executed, give me notes and instructions for the rest of my life, show me Satan, show me the gates of hell, show me end times biblical prophecy for one of my partners to shoot me in the head. Besides, they're aiming way too high. You're down here on the floor. You're fine. And I ended up grabbing my arm and waving it back and forth like a flag. I don't know why I did it. I just did it. And they said, hey, Ollie, we see you, man. Come on out. Music to my ears. Now, up until this time, I told you, previously that my legs didn't work. My body didn't work. It wouldn't cooperate. I wanted to get up and leave, and my body was frozen in place. It wouldn't move. And I got movement in my legs, and I don't know how other than by the grace of God. I'm way worse off now than I was initially when I wanted to leave the first time. And so I was on a little linoleum patch in the apartment because it had a carpet, but it had, when you first open the door, it's not carpet, it's linoleum. Well, I had bled so much over there, it allowed me to slide across the floor. My head in between the door, and I forced the door open with my head. Everybody outside is screaming for me, come on, Ollie, come on, Ollie, come on, Ollie. And so I push in and I make it halfway outside the door to my belt, and I'm exhausted and I'm about to lose consciousness because of the blood loss. Rescue team runs up and grabs me. They got to go down 90 degrees down a set of stairs, and that's when my bad arm got caught in the railing. All the nerves are cut. I don't feel it. But that actually woke me up because I was just about to pass out. And then I woke up with my head being shaken like this, saying, he's stuck, he's stuck, he's stuck. One of my partners crossed my field of view, unhooked my arm, and it wrapped around my neck the wrong way. That's when I knew it was really bad and that my arm was in bad shape. They're dragging me down the stairs. My vest starts to choke me. I'm bleeding all over one of my partners right here, all down his face, out of his eyebrows, down his lashes. And I tell him I can't breathe. And he says, shut up, I'm busy. They round the corner, and boom, he drops me. Now, if he was right here, this is where he'd jump up and down and yell and scream, I didn't drop you, I didn't drop you. I set you down. He dropped me. I was there. And it really doesn't matter. What was special is what happened after. Bad guy had a change of heart, picked up his rifle and started shooting, so the gunfight started again. Well, he immediately set me down, whether he dropped me or set me down, but he jumped on top of me. And he knew he was going to get shot, and he did it anyway. And he just laid on top of me so that I wouldn't get shot anymore. And if these little kids and a poor mom directly underneath us, in the apartment directly underneath us, she had two little boys, like 3 and 5, 2 and 4, young little guys. And it was a mom. And she ran out and she hid behind my partner that was laying on top of me. And his last name was Abutin. And he shielded me and the mom and those two little boys. And he knew he was going to get shot, and he did it anyway. By the grace of God, he didn't get shot. And that was just an example of some very heroic things and courageous things that happened that day. Side of the apartment to safety, where I was outside of where he could shoot.
Yeah.
I was protected. They started giving me medical attention, and they started trying to put gauze in my chest injury and a little bit on my arm. And they loaded me into the back of an ambulance. And one of my partners, she jumped in the ambulance with me and said, and I remember telling her, just say, Ali, we love you. We're going to take care of you. Everything's going to be fine. And I said, you know, it's going to be fine. Just get me to the hospital. I'll be okay. So the ambulance takes off. I'm out the door. I'm on my way to the hospital. And it's about a 20-minute drive from where I am to the hospital. The paramedic is in there talking to the hospital, giving them my vitals, my blood pressure and all that. My numbers are so low that another paramedic that was an acquaintance of ours we know didn't know that was me, heard my vitals and was like, oh man, that guy's dead. He just doesn't know it yet. And so it got harder and harder for me to breathe inside the ambulance. So I took my oxygen mask off. And just breathing regular air was actually easier than trying to breathe with the oxygen mask on. And I don't know why. That just happened to me. And then my vision went away, and I thought it was due to the blood loss. My vision just faded out and just stopped. And that was the third and final time I thought I was going to die. And I said, oh, this is where I die. I said, but it's okay. Because one, I did not die in that nasty child molester's apartment. Two, I'm breathing free air and I'm going to die a free man. And three, and the most important of all, I just spent 3 minutes with Jesus before my day of judgment. That's a good death. And so I was at peace, complete and total peace. Well, I described way back when I, in the presence of the Lord, that warm bathwater feeling washed over me. Well, that warm bathwater feeling washed over me in the ambulance, and a little tiny voice, not the craziness that goes on in my head, but just so soft and so calm, I almost missed it. It said, just hold on. And that warm bathwater feeling washed over me. And I knew, I said, hey, Jesus spoke to me. He told me to hold on. No problem. That was the moment that I knew, no matter how long it takes, we're at 13 years in September. No matter how many operations, I've had 43 operations from 2012 to 2016. No matter how long it takes, I've had thousands of hours of physical therapy, trying to just get any kind of functioning movement out of my arm and my body. And I knew I was going to be okay. No matter how long the road, no matter how bad it gets, I know I'm going to be okay because Jesus just told me to hold on, and I can do that for sure. We get to the hospital. The trauma surgeon and the anesthesiologist meet the ambulance out there. They cut open my rib on, I don't know, they cut me open on one of my sides, and they gave me a breathing tube so I could start breathing again. And after they did that, I was able to see. And I don't know, I guess I got oxygen back and my vision came back. But they pulled me out of the ambulance. They rushed me into the emergency room. Now, I had a prepped and ready operating room. Now, I had so many different injuries that it took 9 different specialists for all my body parts that were injured. They were all there, all at the tops of their field, all in one place with a prepped and ready operational room. Tell me that's not a miracle. Tell me there's no God. I'm not hearing it. That was just a huge miracle in itself. the last thing I see before I go into surgery was a nurse. And I don't know what her name is. I don't even remember her face, other than she had brown hair with pink scrubs and she had teddy bears on. My last words going into surgery were, "My name's Ali Perez. I've been shot with a rifle a couple of times. I'll do whatever it takes to survive. You have my consent. Do whatever you need to do to keep me alive." Those were my last words. And I pass out and I go into surgery. And I'm in surgery for 12 hours. During that 12-hour time, I went through 100. I interviewed my daughter and I interviewed the anesthesiologist twice. The first time I went through 200 bags. The second time was 100 bags. So it's between 100 and 200 bags of blood and blood product I was going through. I was going through a bag a minute because they hooked me up to this pump. They would fill me up with the blood and I was leaking everywhere. So they just started stapling everything. I had 300 something staples, had over 300 staples for my injuries. I learned after the fact that when I showed up to the hospital, I didn't have any blood left, but my heart was still beating. Another miracle. I learned that from the anesthesiologist and one of my partners. The anesthesiologist told my partner and also told me, he said, "Hey, when you showed up here, you didn't have any blood left, but your heart was still beating. That's another miracle. I'm supposed to be dead." And they come out, they got me confused with the supervisor, Craig. And I'll backtrack in a minute and say what happened to everybody. So what happened is after I got put on an ambulance, about 3 to 5 minutes later, bad guy knew he was going to bleed to death if he didn't get help. So he surrendered and was taken into custody. So they arrested him. They put him on an ambulance and took him to a different hospital. When they shut the door on me, Mike picked up Craig, went across the landing, kicked the door open, and dragged him into another apartment. Here's another miracle. When the door shut, I watched Mike do it with the door shut, and I can't explain how. How was I able to see Mike pick up Craig, drag him across the landing, kick open the other apartment, and drag Mike into safety? I watched him do it, but the door was shut. These are things that I can't explain. When he shut the door on me, the bad guy advanced on me a couple of times to execute me, and my partner Mike shot into the apartment several times and pushed that guy off of me. And I got to tell him about that in the hospital later. So they take care of me. They take care of Craig and Mike. And then the bad guy surrenders and is arrested. Well, Craig and I go to the same hospital. Bad guy goes to a different hospital. They mixed up Craig and me when they were talking to my wife. Craig had left arm, left chest injuries like mine, but they were drastically less than mine. So they said, "No, your husband's fine. He's going to be out in a minute. He's going to be out in a couple hours. He'll probably be here for about a week, maybe 2 weeks." So it got my wife's hopes up. And then they said, "Oh, we're sorry. Wrong patient. We don't have any information on your husband." They did that twice. And I'm not saying that to disparage the hospital. I'm just saying that because in the midst of all the chaos, things happen. And there's this very chaotic and traumatic situation going on at the hospital. And, information can get lost. It wasn't a bad thing. It was just something that happened. So my wife was going through a whole lot at the hospital. Then the doctor pulled my wife, my son, her baby sister, and a nurse, and the surgeon came out, put her in a separate room and said, "We can't stop the bleeding. You need to make preparations that your husband will not survive. We've done everything we can do for him, but we can't stop the bleeding." And at that point, my son got on and said, "No, Mom, it's all right. You don't know. He doesn't know. Pops. Pops has got this. Pops is going to be fine. And it wasn't that I was going to be fine. It was my Father in heaven had me so that I wouldn't break my son's heart. So it's not a boast on me. It's a boast on he was convinced that his father had it, and I was convinced that my father had it, that he had me so that I was going to be all right. He gets all the credit goes up. It was nothing with me. I'm already supposed to be dead, and I'm only alive by the grace of God. So my pops, because he was like, nuh-uh, not Pops. He was just certain. And I was saying the exact same thing. I said, my Pops has me. I'm good. I'm going to be all right. And that my wife's baby sister went out into the waiting room. And at this point, there's hundreds of officers there from all over the county. So they can't stop the bleeding. They don't think he's going to survive. We all need to pray. And everybody stopped what they were doing and started praying for me right there. I'm the direct recipient of the power of prayer. And I am 100% convinced the only reason why I made it out of there alive was everybody praying for me. That was the final push to send me home, to send me, to make me on my recovery, that I got to receive and firsthand so I can come back and testify to the power of prayer. And it is a wonderful thing. And they go back and they start working on me one last time. They come back an hour or so later, around the 12-hour mark, and they said, okay, we found the last bit of bleeding. It was underneath his diaphragm. We managed to stop the bleeding, but his road to recovery is so far. We're nowhere